poses of assessment. So a lot of times you're going to get a player, new class, you don't really know them that well yet. You don't really know their body that well. And these poses are going to give you clues right away as to what is not necessarily wrong with them, but imbalanced. And one of the main philosophies of Power Yoga for Sports is that imbalances inevitably lead to injury. Asymmetry inevitably leads to injury. And sports by nature are one side dominant, so you're going to have imbalances, but it's my job to make sure that the imbalances are like that and not like that, right? And the one analogy that I use to make people understand it the most is if you lived in New York and you were going to drive to Florida, you wouldn't drive on a car that had imbalanced tires, right? Because what would happen if you drove all those miles on an imbalanced tire? Inevitably, one tire would blow, right? My athletes recognize this analogy more than when I talk about their asymmetry. So we talk about cars a lot, so they get that. All right, so we're going to get down to it. These are our poses. I already told you I'm filming it. We're going to upload it, but if you want to take a picture of this just as a reminder, you're always welcome to do that. And if you can all, whoever wants to participate, have a seat, that'd be great. On the ground, like cross-legged.
Shoes, no shoes?
That's up to you. It's not as yoga as...
Yes, for remembering purposes.
So last year, I brought my own computer, and my real computer, and the tech guy almost wiped the entire content of my computer. I was this far from. So now I have just a presentation computer. Yay.
I bumped the camera, so I'd want to check it again.
What'd you do?
I bumped it. I didn't see that wire.
All right. You're good being on film?
Yeah.
Not running on the wall. All right. Yeah. So the first one, we're sitting in easy cross leg. This is how your team comes to you right away, just sitting in easy cross leg. I can tell who has tight hamstrings, and you're pretty good. You're a teeny bit tight because the knees are nice and high, right? But you'll have athletes come in and the athletes will do like this. Easy cross leg is not easy for them a lot of times. So that's it. Easy cross leg is number one. But what we're going to do is take a nice deep breath in. Just interlace your fingers, press your palms up to the sky. I start all my classes like this just from familiarity with my athletes and also for me to assess. Bringing your arms down into a 90-degree angle, keeping the elbows shoulder height. Right away I look, and especially if I'm working with some O-linemen, some big, bulky, muscly guys, you'll see this, right? So we'll see that they don't have much external rotation, right? We want to get them to the point where their fingertips are straight up to the sky at least. You're all great, amazing. So we might not have good examples today. Hopefully we'll get the pictures up there so you see some really heavy too. Now you're going to twist. Okay, so twist like you mean it. Twist, get the cracks out. Plug it in. There's a plug under here. Okay? What?
I feel like I'm getting caught.
No, you might be. Okay, so what can you tell about yourself here? You can see which way is easier to twist, correct? And which way you get a little bit stuck. So do it again. Just try and notice that now. Everybody will be able to. I twist much easier to the left than I do to the right.
Why do my legs want to come up?
Yeah, your hamstrings are a little tight today, Missy. Tighter than normal. You got your prism on.
I do.
Nice. Right, so how does this translate into athletics, into sports? It actually is pretty important, rotation of the spine. Not only is it going to decrease some of the impact on shoulders sometimes. So if you're out here, right, you're ready to throw, excuse my form, and someone comes by, if your back isn't able to rotate, it's going to all come into the shoulder. That's number one. To me, that's least case scenario. If we're talking about soccer players, right, and you're watching them and you're watching film of your opponent before you actually play them, you're going to see which way they, and especially that really good player that you're worried about, you're going to see which way that they turn better, which way that they can adapt to getting the ball better, and the way that they're tight, you're going to be able to approach them and get the ball on that side because they're going to lose some field of vision. Does that make sense? Yeah. So one of my main examples in this is I worked with an MLB baseball player, MLB guy, righty batter. He was always, whenever he got stressed, he would tighten up and he would literally look like this. Okay? So we already know that he could turn better this way and he's in lockdown here. He would get a little bit seized up in his low back and his hip. And he would be, so he's a righty batter. We got 99 miles an hour right here, and he's twist here. He is a right eye dominant guy, this guy too, which puts him at more of a disadvantage, right? So this is his best eye, this is where he is, and that's the ball. Okay? When he goes to follow through with his swing, he has a little resistance and he loses some power. Does that make sense? So you want to make sure that they're clean and clear in the rotation in each side. Okay? I got something to help you. You can sit on these, easy cross leg, and you can much happier. So let's just talk about dominant eye for a minute. I don't really know, I've never really taken the time to see if it's something that you can change, but we don't care if you can change it. Let's figure out what it is, and let's figure out how your athlete is situated rotationally and see if they're at a disadvantage, or they could be at an advantage. I also have a high school kid who's a righty batter. He twists amazing to the left, and he's left eye dominant. So he's all clear and all open, but we still want to make sure his back stays even, right? Because we don't want him to go, you know, if he's running the bases and then he goes to go back and he tweaks his back. There's all kinds of things. We always want to come down to as much symmetry as possible. But do you know how to do your dominant eye? So you're going to make a little circle, tiny little circle, arms extended, and you're going to look at me or your neighbor through the circle. So you're right, look at me, right. 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 Left. I told you he was trouble. So whenever you're looking at me, there's also the way you can go like that and see if things like shift. But that's more confusing to me. This is just straight up. You could do this with your athletes. They can figure it out so that you can start explaining that to them and they can understand why you're working on all these final twists with them. Because the point of all of the poses that I bring to you and I bring to my athletes, I give you reasons why, so that they're excited to do it because it's going to make their game better. Not because we got to do yoga, they say yoga's good now, you know, they want to know why. And the more you can inject why, the more they're going to be excited about it. You came to my class actually, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you now, and you, and did you? Yeah. See, faces, amazing. Names, I get my kids confused sometimes. So now we're going to lay down on two backs. Isn't it better on the blocks?
Great.
Right? So if you're working with your players, you ask school, I know schools don't give you much, but 40 blocks, and you can twist sitting on the block. Once your butt is a little higher than your ankles, you can get nice and tall, and then you can twist deep. Okay? So don't fall asleep. You just woke up. Okay? We're going to take a nice big full body stretch on the floor. Arms are over your head. Yeah, don't kick anybody. Make sure everything's good. This is the best. Yep. So now you're going to flex your feet. You're going to keep your head down. Let's press the low back into the floor a little, just so that you protect the back. And you're going to go opposite arm, opposite leg. It's early. It might take you 2 or 3 times to figure that out. No. Opposite arm, opposite leg. Head stays down. Okay? So you could return. This isn't about abs, right? You can return it down every time. Head stays relaxed. Breathe. Some of you are pink already. Okay, so what are we doing here? We're engaging their hamstring flexibility. So perfectly clean, clear hamstring, you should be able to have your fingertips touch the tips of your toes with a straight leg and straight arm. And yes, your arms are long enough. Yes, they are. So see where you touch. Do you touch the shin on one side? And do you touch the toes on the other? Which side is your tight side? Right? So, I mean, that's normal for a righty, but you never know. There is really no normal or no 100%. This is also going to warm up their body. They're on the ground, so it's not that much balancing stuff. You can go ahead and bring your knees into your chest. Did everyone identify?
Yes.
Right? A tighter hamstring. And it is pretty shocking. And that also translates into that hip being a little bit tighter and inevitably the low back as well. So we want to make sure both hamstrings are as equal as possible. So what I'm doing in here today, unfortunately we only have an hour, so I try to steam through this for you, is I'm showing you the poses to figure out the imbalances. If we had 2, 3, 4 hours, then I would show you the poses to fix the imbalance. But obviously you guys are smart enough to know in your training, your schooling, how to stretch out the hamstrings, right? So we're going to do a lot of legs, hips, and hamstrings in my morning class tomorrow for knees. So if you come to that, you're going to figure a lot of that out. Okay.
You see a lot of hamstring problems? This dude, like my football guys, we handle the hell out of the quads.
Yeah.
Sometimes hamstrings, sometimes
Some.
miss.
Yeah. You guys are making nappies? This is annoying. Open that up and then find and balance these pictures. Okay? So now you're on your backs, knees bent, feet flat. And we're going to drop the knees out one to each side. Yeah. Does anybody have any pins, plates, screws, nails, staples in any body part touching on that? We're good? You do? Recent or? No. Okay. So what you want to do is put the bottoms of your feet together. Okay? What is kind of important, and that comes, it'll be a little on your athlete, but it'll be a lot on you, is that you have them aware that their feet are right in their body center. So the seam between their feet is right in their belly button, nose center. Okay? And that your feet are lined up with each other. Okay, so that meaning you don't have one toe out here, the heel way back there, right? That they're perfectly in line with each other. That's a good way to do it. Lift them up and look, right? So what does this do? Obviously, we're targeting groin inner thigh here, but if you just try not to move your legs, just peek up and see if one knee is higher. That's the groin inner thigh hip side that's tighter, that needs a little work. And sometimes with the groin, even a teeny tiny bit can make a big difference on especially MCLs, right? So we want to make sure that groin inner thigh is really clean and open so that there's no pressure on that medial knee. So does anybody have we got my little sweet angel here, right side a little tighter.
Yeah.
Right? But you guys all look pretty good. Maybe a speck, right? Is that true for you? Something you know? Yeah. So even though they know it, you're bringing more awareness to it. Okay? So just use your hands, and this is a nice place to get them to breathe in the beginning, and also you can do a quick assessment. So take your hands, you're here a little bit of a long time, on the outside of the thighs, and use your arm strength to bring the knees back together. Don't use your groin inner thigh. That's not nice. Okay? So, this is a fun one. Where's my both of them? So we can't find them?
There's your example of that.
She remembers.
Now I do a little bit.
Sometimes you slide the screen across. That's a good idea, last year. Okay, so this is a fun one. And my people that were here last year that like this presentation, don't tell, okay? So you're going to draw your knees into your chest. Now, if you have any difficulties with the knees, you always want to grab behind the thighs. You don't want your strong upper body over the knee, over the shins, and potentially overflexing the knee before it's ready. So if you're good in the knees, you can grab the knee nice and tight. You're going to get a better read. If you're bad in the knees, grab behind. Now, this is where trust comes in. Rogue man.
Yep.
Ready? I want you to close your eyes, don't peek, okay? And you're going to rock and roll as big and as fun, like you were a little 10-year-old kid again, as you can. All the way up to seated, and then all the way back to the back of your head, like you're going to go into a backward roll almost. Really big, eyes closed, no peeking.
No what?
No peeking. Yeah. Don't peek, don't peek. Keep going. Bigger, bigger. So you would do this basically a minute with your athletes. Now, you're going to come up and you're not going to move from where you are. John is going to be my spokesperson.
Oh, imagine that.
Okay? You know him?
No, I thought you had that job.
All right. So open your eyes and see where you are. You kind of knew. You were a little saggy to me. Okay? So is anybody not where they started? Is that where you were?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. He's a great example here because it's very clear. If we went for another minute, he'd be in a full circle by then, right? So this is fun. This warms up the back. You get some back cracks out of it. You start to force their breath, and we can really see what's going on. So he got pulled right. Left, sorry. Likely he has some left hip back tightness that is pulling him a lot that way, and vice versa if he went the other way. Is that true for you? Is that true for you? Because sometimes it's not. So, 95% of the time maybe, but, there's always that person that it doesn't make any sense for. So what we would do is some nice open chest stretch on blocks. If we have time, I can even show you that at the end. Maybe some foam rolling on the back, on the hips, to get the back open and even. When you did your seated twist, was it harder for you to go left?
Both are.
Both are right. So the other thing that can happen, did anybody inchworm forward? Okay, so inchworming forward, you stay in line, but you inchworm forward, and by the end of it, usually do that for a minute, because you get a true read in a minute. If you only do 10 seconds, 30 seconds, you're not going to get as good of a read. You were that far? You twisted that far? What, that? You went to...
Oh, no, I was watching you.
Oh, okay. So if you inchwormed, the tendency is that your hip flexors are super tight, okay? And hip flexors need to be addressed, because what happens when the hip flexors are tight is this, right? You don't look like this, I'm exaggerating it. And then you make this big arch flow back, so when you rock and roll, you're literally inchworming yourself forward. So those people that really make their way off the yoga mat, off the 50-yard line, if you're outside, you're going to need to focus on those hip flexors more, okay? Does that all make sense? And these are easy, these are fun, these are quick. This is especially helpful if, it's a new team, it's a new kid, or if you are working at a facility and you constantly get new people and you want to be as effective as possible with these people, and you don't know them, sometimes it can take a really long time to figure out what's going on. So there's a little bit more room if you guys want to come. Hi, Rod. You guys want to come in front? They're scared of me. All right, so now we're going to take, is anybody techie? Does anybody know how to get me to screen 1?
Screen 1 is...
This is screen 2, this is screen 1, and I can't get the pictures up. And you can't screw it up this time like the guy did last year. All right, so we're going to take a couple people for this one. I'll start with 2 people, maybe we'll do a couple more, and if we don't have a good enough example, maybe you want to try?
I don't know how to do
You
it.
try? Okay, so come up here.
See.
We'll do one at a time. We're going to do simple standing forward bend, okay? So you're going to go ahead and fold it over and grab opposite elbow. Can I be really bold? Can you just have your tank top on? That would be even better. Good. Okay, so when we're doing standing forward bends, obviously you're going to see right away hamstring stuff, right? If they're here, right? his hamstrings are, they're pretty good. But what we're gonna do is look at the base first, and as I start talking, try not to change, okay? Because you're gonna wanna fix it once I start saying it.
Sure.
So you wanna look with every pose that you're doing, especially standing poses or like downward dog type poses, the plug in the socket. The plug in the socket is gonna tell you a lot. And what is the plug in the socket? For this pose in particular, where is he drawing his energy? Is his feet, right? That's the plug in the socket. So we're looking at that first. She's a yoga teacher, so she's a little in the know, a little bit more. So he's also a little type A. Can you tell me why? He won't drop his head. And I'm going to tell him 65 times to drop his head, and they'll still pick it right up. Type A?
Yeah, he did.
Are you a warrior?
Yeah.
There you go. And I'm not a fortune teller. I might be a gypsy, but I'm not a fortune teller. So we're looking at the plug in the socket. I can see right away, and if you want to come up, if you want to move around, please do. Can you see anything going on in his feet? You can come up. You can die down there.
All his weight is on the outside
Yes.
of his feet.
You see that? Especially this side, right? Especially this side. So he's not plugging his plug in the socket, right? So what does that do? Does anybody vacuum? Do you ever have that stupid loose plug and you go, and it comes out, and it comes out, or and it's a pain in the ass, and you go, and you spread it out, you put it back in, and then it's nice and tight, and then you can vacuum and be perfectly good, right? That's what you want here, the strong, perfect connection, because everything above it is going to be affected. So he's not going to stretch his hamstrings out properly because he's here. And we know that there's not just one muscle to the hamstring, right? There's three. So you disconnect that medial hamstring when you're here, and you're not getting proper stretch. You gonna get stretch? Yes. Are you gonna get perfect stretch? No. And hamstrings are one of the hardest to make change in, right? We've been doing it since we were little, and unless you're working on it for an hour a day, it's not gonna change. You good?
I'm good.
Okay.
The fact that he is on the outside of his foot, what does that mean?
There's a little bit of a weakness in the ankle. I would do some balancing poses to strengthen all those little tiny muscles in the foot and the ankles. Does that make sense? Yeah. That he's overstretching possibly the outer ankle, and he has a tight inner ankle. Yes? And so then we go from plug in the socket. Oh my God, I love you. Go from plug in the socket up the leg, and we look at the knees. Okay? So if you're in, he's a little wider than hips width apart, so he's not going to be perfectly, it's just fine, rectangular. You want to look at ankle, ankle, knee, knee, ankle, and that should be a perfect rectangle if you're hips width apart. If you're a little wider, it will be a little different. But you're looking to see if there's a knock in the knee, which is going to, likely he's not knocking the knee because he's on the outside of the foot, so that would be like a child-proof cat. Right? You can't go one way and the other way with bones. So then we move up. If you're perfectly centered looking at him, now you're going to look at him as, don't look at him as a human, look at him as a shape. Okay? Do you see the same amount, especially you, and maybe you too, if you want to move over, do you see more of this side or this side? Or do you see him perfectly even? You see a little bit more of this one, right? Because he's pulled a little that way. Right? So we're starting to look at the shapes. Now look at what's going on here and here. I can't see it. So is anything going on here and here? A little lower on that side because he's pulling this way, so he has to compensate, otherwise he's going to fall over. And finally, you're going to look at bumps and waviness and things going on with the back. And if you see here, it's a little bit hard to see because he's in a dark shirt, but he's higher on this side, right? You can see that. Yeah? And I have some amazing slides. If you don't see it, you're going to see it on some of my pros, and you're going to be fucking shocked that this happens. Excuse my French. So, in order for you to come up, I want you to sit down because you're past out. You come up now. And thank you for staying in there so long. Do what you got to do.
What side was that leaning towards?
You were pulling to the right, yeah. So there's a contraption that my husband and I have used for 30 years called the Ma Roller. I should be getting royalties on this by now. It's $25 on Amazon. It's wooden. It kicks butt. It's not like a foam roller. It's deep. It's wooden. It's this wide. Your spine goes in the middle, and it comes up, and you lie down on it, and it digs into those paraspinals without having to hire a massage therapist. When you're bad, you'll cry and it will take an hour. When you're good, you'll whiz through it in 10 minutes and it will be a life changer because you won't have to depend on a massage therapist. And I was a massage therapist, so for me saying this,
How much is that?
$25 to $30. Yeah, when I bought it 35 years ago, it was like $120. It was a big deal. Now each of my kids has it in their dorm room, they play sports in college, and every one of my clients has it. It's amazing. The Ma roller, amazing. Yeah. Okay, so let's just take a look. You might not have anything, so now she knows too, because she's a little savvy, right? Also, when you want to do standing forward bend, you want a true read on that rectangle. You want to do hips width apart with the feet and parallel, and in order to do that, you ground one heel, you pivot that heel in, and that big toe will graze the inner ankle, then you pivot back out. That's hips width apart. Because we're talking about bones. We're not talking about muscles. We're not talking about any other flesh. We're talking about the bony structure of you, and that's how you're going to get the best read. Because you'll do, especially with athletes, they'll be like hips width apart, they'll be like this. Or I work with a lot of moms, and they all have body dysmorphia, and I'm like hips width apart, and they're like, no. Some of them are like this. I'm like, no. So let's look at the plugs in the socket. So interestingly. Don't move, okay? Looks like she's pretty good. I mean, she's in a solid sneaker, so it's a little harder to tell, but her left foot is forward of her right foot. It's about 1 inch forward. You see that? So that's where she lined up comfortably, right? And the good thing to do here, too, is kind of talk a little bit, because then they fall into not the attention perfect pose. So you talk a little bit, make them sway, deep breaths, and then they fall into the pose that is right for them. So she's a little bit forward there. So that's interesting to me. That's a little harder to understand, but it's probably a little low back, maybe some deep glute thing. So let's start to look at the negative space around her neck, around her side body. You guys are in center now, so you might say, so is her head pulling that way or her head pulling that way? Head's that way, and her body's that way? That's interesting, okay. And then if I look at any lumps, bumps, she looks pretty good here, but she's also sitting a little bit back. So this would be a truer read. A truer read for hamstrings is from a side view, and this is also a good clue if you're going to do standing forward bends with your athletes. You want the hip to be right over the ankle from a side view. Most people will be really heavy in the heels. It's easier to balance there, but it locks down the hamstrings, and you're going to get a stretch, yes, but are you going to get the best stretch possible? No. So you want to have it a little bit more forward. You feel it more there? Yeah. Okay, so she was a little bit better. I'm going to show you some amazing examples, so I want to make sure that we save plenty of time for the slides. Make sense, everybody? Plug in the socket. So for standing forward bend, that's the feet. We're looking at the feet first. Sometimes it wouldn't have worked with you because you need a little knot roller. Yeah.
Would it be better off to do it without shoes on because you have
Yes.
more gravity points?
Yes, totally. Yeah. I always make them kick them off, and they actually like it, even if I'm on the football field. Sorry, I forgot. Oh. So sometimes if you make them perfect your plug in the socket first, everything else fixes itself. So if I made him or another person line the feet up hips width apart, for you in particular, I would exaggerate it. I would make you go out to the edge of the foot with flexed toes, and then go down to the base of the big toe touches. Keep it there, keep it rigid, keep the ankle nice and supported in center, and then drop the toes down so you understand what center is, and above, sometimes it changes, and that's kind of cool, because you can instantly see how effective you can be. That being said, this isn't one of the assessment poses, but a lot of, especially my football players for some reason, are told that they have no arches, and I particularly don't believe in that. Anybody, if a doctor here is going to be mad at me? Scratch my tires? Good. So I don't believe in that. I believe in low tone, that they need to work the feet a little bit, they need to work standing balancing poses a little bit more, and develop all those little tiny muscles in the foot. You can actually change the size of your shoe once you start working on your foot and balancing more. And what I see more often is that they're collapsing in because of a weakness in the ankle, and they look like this. And when the rookies for the New York Giants come in, I can tell right away by their feet and their attitude who's going to make it in the league and who's not. And I'm always right. Yes?
Correct.
Always right. It's very weird, don't ask, but it's the truth. So what I would do with them is the same thing. I go like this, we flex them up, I go like that, I go, oh, interesting, you have an arch. See your arch? It's in there somewhere, we just gotta use the muscles to pull it up and support it. And then they start walking around like this for a while, and the truth of the matter is, when you're just standing around, just think about it, and you'll start to develop those little muscles. They're gonna be a lot quicker than biceps and, quads and things like that. Okay, so I'm going to skip standing mountain pose for a moment. Let's go into downward facing dog. Maybe a couple of guinea pig volunteers. Good. Would you mind kicking your shoes and socks off?
No.
No pressure, you don't have to. So downward facing dog, plug in the socket. Big hands, right? And partial feet. Likely the heels aren't going to be touching. Do you know downward dog? Yeah, so you're going to face them, yep. Actually, let's go sideways first.
Okay.
Sorry. Okay, so walk those hands out. Now he kind of knows plug in the socket, but hopefully he'll forget in a little bit. So we see this right away. I mean, those are things that you kind of expect, right? We're looking, what did you do to your pinky, man? Yes, like how many times? Yeah. That's what all, did you play football? Okay, all right. So we look at the plug in the socket. His left hand is a little closer in by about 1 inch, if you want to come up and look. So I don't know if there's a little bit more tightness on this shoulder, this neck going on right now. It's not that bad, but it's there. You want to make sure their hands are nice and firmly plugged in. A lot of people will just roll out and be on their pinky side, so whenever they do down dog, they're like, it hurts my wrist, I can't do that. That's a problem, especially for athletes, because you need to be able to bear your weight here and also in a plank at a 90-degree angle in the wrist. If you fall, you're going to decimate your wrist, but if they're ready and prepared and stretched out, maybe you'll just get a mild strain in the wrist, right? So we're going to look up, so you can get a good look here, maybe looking around his shoulders. Does he have the same room here as he has here? Or is it could be, he could be.
Close. This one he has a little more.
A little bit more, it seems like, right? And that's that left side. So now that I know that his head is a little bit more left, and his left arm's pulled back, I'm going to venture to say that it's a little bit more neck, maybe up here, rather than here. Do you tend to have a little left neck tight? It's not bad.
Yeah, I'm left-handed.
Okay, so he's left-handed, so he's a little bit dominant there, okay? Then we would go up the back, and then try not to let you stay here much longer. And you can, if you want to come around and see, you can see this left side, especially left low back, it's a little bit bigger bump, which the model roller will fix if you're not into my elbows in there, right? And then we look at his feet. He's a little bit rolled in on the big toe, so I would want to work that inner ankle a little bit just to make sure the feet are nice.